Raise your hand if the subject of a prenuptial agreement came up before your second marriage and it felt uncomfortable. Maybe it felt like your partner didn't fully trust you. Maybe it felt like planning for a divorce before the marriage even started. Or maybe it just never came up because neither of you wanted to be the one to bring it up. If that's you, I want to offer a completely different way to think about this. In a blended family, a prenup or postnup isn't a distrust document. It isn't a plan for failure. It's one of the most loving, clarifying things a couple can do for each other and for all of their kids. Today, Jerry and I are going to talk about why that conversation matters and how to approach it. Jerry, let's start with the reframe. Most people hear prenup and think divorce protection. Why is that the wrong lens for a blended family?
Because in a blended family, the more important question isn't what happens if we divorce, it's what happens if one of us passes away. And that changes everything about how you think about the conversation. A prenuptial or postnuptial agreement is a document that lets a couple define in advance how their assets and obligations are going to be handled, not according to a set of generic default rules that were written without any knowledge of your family, but according to what you and your spouse have actually decided together. In a blended family with children from prior relationships, existing obligations, and assets built across different chapters of life, that clarity is enormously valuable.
I'd reframe the word entirely. Instead of calling it a divorce document, think of it as a clarity document. It's how a couple says, here is what we've decided. Here is how we want our kids protected. Here is what we want for each other. That's not planning for failure. That's planning with love. So what makes this more important in a blended family than in a first marriage?
In a first marriage, two people are often starting from a similar place. Similar assets, no children from prior relationships, no prior obligations. The financial picture is relatively simple. In a blended family, that's rarely the case. One or both partners may have significant assets they built before this marriage. There are children from prior relationships who have a reasonable expectation of eventually inheriting something. There may be ongoing financial obligations too, such as child support, prior divorce agreements that affect what's available. And without any agreement in place, a set of generic legal defaults applies to all of it. Defaults that have no knowledge of your family's story or your wishes.
Here's the risk that almost no one talks about. Without any agreement, those defaults can quietly undercut the very people you were trying to protect. The children from your prior relationship, the assets you built before this marriage, the wishes you had but never wrote down. A qualified estate planning attorney can help you understand exactly how these defaults apply in your state and what options are available to replace them with something that reflects your current family structure. That's not a conversation for a financial planner to have on your behalf. It is a conversation we think every blended family should be having. Jerry, for couples who are hearing this and thinking we probably should address this, how do they have that conversation without it feeling like an accusation?
The framing is everything. If the conversation starts from a place of, I want to protect my assets from you, that's going to feel like distrust, because it is. But if it starts from a completely different place, I want to make sure that if something happened to me, my kids and you are both taken care of, and I want that written down so there's no ambiguity for anyone, that's a conversation about love. That's a conversation that brings a couple together rather than dividing them.
And I'd strongly recommend not having this conversation cold between the two of you at the kitchen table. Have it first with a financial planner, someone who can help lay out the full picture of what you each have, what your obligations are, and what you're each trying to protect. Then take that clarity to a qualified estate planning attorney who can help advise you properly on your options and draft any agreements that make sense for you and your situation. Each partner should ideally have independent legal counsel. That might sound formal, but it's what protects both you and makes any agreement more likely to hold up.
And for couples who are already married and thinking, we really should have done this before the wedding, a postnuptial agreement is an option. The process is very similar. The important thing isn't the timing. The important thing is getting the clarity that your family deserves.
The pattern that comes up in a blended family is that couples who have never formally talked through how they want to handle things often discover that they've been assuming very different things. A structured conversation with the right experience guidance can completely change how a couple relates around money in a good way. Jerry, I want to zoom out for a second. How does this fit into the bigger picture of a financial plan for a blended family?
Any agreement around assets and intentions only works if it's coordinated with the rest of the plan. That means it needs to align with the couple's estate documents, their beneficiary designations, their insurance coverage, and their overall financial structure. If those pieces aren't telling the same story, the gaps between them can create unintended outcomes. This is one of the reasons we describe our role at White Oak as a financial director, someone who makes sure all of those moving parts are working together. We're not attorneys and we're not rendering legal advice, but we are the ones who see the whole picture, ask the hard questions, and make sure the right professionals are involved. A good estate planning attorney is essential for this conversation. We help clients get to that meeting prepared.
The goal is a plan where every layer, the legal documents, the accounts, the beneficiaries, the insurance, reflects what you want for your family, not what happens by default, what you've decided. If today's video brought up a conversation you've been avoiding, that's worth paying attention to. This is one of those areas where the longer you wait, the harder it gets to address.
Part of what we do at White Oak is help couples get clarity on what they actually want, and then make sure they're connected to the right estate planning attorneys and other professionals to put that all in place. If you'd like to start with a complimentary Connect call, the link is in the description. We'd love to meet your family.
And if this video was helpful, please share it. These are conversations most blended families need to have, and most haven't. We'll see you next time.